Yo, what is up? Welcome. Next installment of Jay's and Confused podcast. I'm Jay. Matt, what is up?
What is up? I
How are
am
you
after that
feeling?
game confused. You know what? I walked away from that game with more positives than negatives. I actually think that game was not. I don't think the final score reflects what that game actually was.
I also have to say, just a shout out, I left that game thinking the Magic were a better team rather than that the Celtics were a worse team.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at the Celtics.
They
The
played well throughout. They
scoreboard.
didn't get down when we went on runs. I thought Tristan da Silva looked really good, and their ability to just have two 6'10" ball handling shooting wings on the floor at all time is just unfair.
Yeah, I mean, and Desmond Bain finding his stride a little bit. Like he's been a guy that it was a big haul that they gave up for him, and I think today he kind of showed why. Paolo Banchero was pretty quiet, but did affect all areas of the game. He was distributing the ball, he was rebounding well. So even though he had an off-scoring night, I thought that, yeah, I mean, Franz Wagner is good at basketball. Desmond Bain found his shot a little bit and found ways to impact the game, and the Magic are pretty good, but I honestly came away from it thinking the first quarter looked ugly on a scoreboard. I believe at the end of the first quarter, the Celtics were down by 13. It was 25-38. I actually think that the fourth quarter is where the Celtics lost this game, and I was very impressed with how they battled back from that first quarter. And yeah, I'm walking away from this feeling fine if I'm a Celtics fan, and I'm walking away from it pretty happy if I'm a Magic fan, seeing that even when Paolo isn't able to shoot the ball as well as he normally does or get to the basket like that, he's able to impact the game, and they have plenty of depth around him.
Yeah, if only the Celtics could get, a 6'10" shooting scoring wing who went to Duke. That would
And
really
can
help us
pass a
out
little
in these
bit,
situations.
rebound.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
only
those
we could
guys don't
find
grow
that
on
guy.
trees though. I don't know where you look for that guy.
I have found this season really interesting because in third quarters especially, because the last few years we were the team that won every quarter except for the third quarter. And when we lost, it was because the other team went on some crazy run in the third quarter when we kind of lose focus a little bit. But this year it seems like we're losing the other three quarters is opposing teams in the third quarter when they lose focus.
Yeah, and I thought, I think this really was a fourth quarter loss, end to end. I thought again the third, and I wonder what that has to do if you look at the lineups that were played and kind of the conventional wisdom that in the fourth quarter you go to your starters, you go to your best players, and then looking at the other quarters where we were playing hard end to end and we were making plays and wondering whether or not necessarily going to our guys late in that fourth quarter, if we gave something up that was present in those other quarters in terms of energy and focus and defensive intensity, especially.
I thought this was the first time we saw that three guard lineup where we went with Simons, Pritchard, and Derek White all at the same time on the floor. Going into the season with the amount we talked about spacing and this being just a run and gun offensive team, I thought we would see that lineup earlier in the year. But I think with the lack of playmaking on this team, they've really needed to stagger those guys' minutes. So it became kind of a break in case of emergency lineup. But I'd like to see Joe play with that in some other situations when we're not down 15 with 2 minutes left.
Well, yeah, I think that my bigger issue was Anthony Simon's minutes at the beginning of that fourth quarter. I think at that point it was still a very competitive, very close game, and he hit some big shots, kept us in it at the beginning of that fourth quarter. But he also committed three fouls pretty rapid succession, and was just not. Again, I was left wondering after that game how much of Anthony Simons is kind of flash. when it comes to even when he's hitting those shots, even when the threes look good. I think he provides a scoring boost that we need sometimes, but it does feel like we're sacrificing some stuff when he's on the floor. And in this game, in that fourth quarter, I was left with the impression of if those minutes had been, an Ugo or a Jordan Walsh. We don't have the shooting necessarily out there, but it looked like we were finding ways to create offense in the other three quarters, or at least in quarters 2 and 3, that had involved more intense defense, more forcing turnovers and going on fast breaks, and it felt like that was a little bit missing, and our offense did stagnate a little bit in that fourth quarter.
I wrote down in the second quarter at one point, is Simons just done for this game? Because got put in early in the first when Pritchard picked up his second foul, played 2 minutes, was a minus 11 in those 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just was leaving guys on defense. His on-ball defense has improved a lot since joining the Celtics, but his off-ball defense is almost non-existent. And he's just leaving guys open in the corner, which can give you, a 13-2 run in 2 minutes if you're doing that. And it's hard to shoot your way out of a 13-2 run. I do wonder if that can improve, because it does seem like he's putting more effort into other parts of his defensive game. But it's something where Joe's going to pull him out if that keeps happening. And then if he's on the bench, his shooting doesn't matter much to us.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also how is he getting himself out of those situations when he's getting beat on defense. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think the fourth quarter, this game got away from the Celtics because they were not able to force turnovers and because they put themselves in a really bad hole with the foul trouble early. And 3 of those fouls were Anthony Simons getting trapped on defense, getting stuck, or getting beat and just kind of fouling his way out of it. Yeah, I think we committed 27. I mean, this game the Orlando got 31 free throws in this game. 11 of our 27 fouls came in the fourth quarter, and 3 of them were Simons pretty quick in that fourth quarter and really put us in a hole there. So I think that's an element of the defense that is we were playing really pretty like fundamentally sound defense through those first 3 quarters. Even in that first quarter, which didn't go particularly well for the Celtics, I think a lot of that was Orlando was hitting their threes at a clip that they just don't normally. I think they shot 47% from 3. They're hovering around 36, 38% as a team, which again is even a big step up from them last year. But yeah, I think that fourth quarter, the fouls really kind of doomed us from the start.
Yeah, I thought the turning point in that beginning of the fourth quarter was a mix of the fouls, but also the way they were guarding Jaylen Brown, where they just decided to trap and to double him every time he touched the ball and make somebody else score, which Peyton Pritchard had some effective plays after that. But with Jaylen Brown taken out of it, we really weren't going to have the offensive punch to make a comeback. The threes we've seen from a few teams now. I think the Houston shot 66% against us. And a lot of it is that we're just leaving guys open in the corner. Part of it's Anthony Simons. Part of it's also Hugo and Jordan Walsh. I saw a few times miss rotations, try to help on drives a little too aggressively to get the block or the steal, and just leaving wide open corner threes, which if you do that in the NBA, you're going to get a crazy out of line performance from the other team shooters.
Yeah, and that's something that I had written down as a note early in the second quarter. I had just written down over helping off of shooters. I think that's something that we've been doing throughout the season, and I do wonder how much of it is the Celtics have been committing a lot of fouls early in the year, and I think how much of it is just kind of the idea of if we're playing one-on-one, we're getting beat and we're fouling, so we're going to help. And helping off of shooters, even again on a team like Orlando, which isn't known for its shooting, I think we were just fully leaving guys with 10, 15 feet of space on occasion to help on drives that weren't particularly going anywhere. It wasn't like they were getting deep penetration necessarily all the time. They were getting kind of to the top of the kind of paint area and already had a shooter open with 10 feet of space. So I think the over helping on shooters is something that they're definitely going to be looking at in terms of when they go over film from this game. Um, yeah, that was tough, and I think that that's something that if they continue to do is going to keep biting them. And I think they almost have to challenge other teams' offenses uh, just one on one, and hope that our defenders can learn how to stay in front and play it without fouling. But even then, knowing if you give up some more fouls, you're not giving up those threes that are quickly add up and build insurmountable leads for the other team.
I usually see it happen when Nemiskate is not on the floor, and that's a big problem. And why he has the going into this game, he had the second highest net rating of any center in the league.
Any player in the league, I
Oh no,
believe.
any player in the league. He had the highest of any player, any center in the league,
Yeah.
with Jokic and Şengün right behind him. And I love Navis Keita as much as anybody on the planet, apart from his close friends and family. But
And
he's
even then, it's
not.
a competition.
It's becoming a competition day by day. Uh, it's really more a sign of the lack of centers behind him in this rotation. That when Luka Garza's in there, our rim protector is Josh Minott and Derek White. They're the guys whose responsibility it is to cover the corner shooter and protect the rim, which is asking a lot from those guys just in terms of feet they need to cover. I don't know if you were watching the Celtics Red Claws game that was on overlapping with tonight's game. Amari Williams had 4 blocks in the first quarter.
Interesting. Okay, I was not. I'll be honest.
And
I was a
he's
little bit
looking.
surprised that we didn't see any Chris Boucher. Again, we've talked before. His inconsistency in minutes is something that I'm really interested in and kind of trying to figure out, especially with Luka Garza. I thought he had some good moments in this game in terms of his screening. I loved that he was setting screens kind of at the top of the paint for Peyton Pritchard, like mid-range screens that got Peyton Pritchard some nice shots. So I thought he did a good job there. But again, the rim protection was non-existent from him, and he was kind of out of rotation on defense a couple times.
Yeah, the trick with Chris Boucher is he looks like he should have better rim protection. He's tall, he has the long wingspan, he's very quick. But in the games he's played for the Celtics and in his history with the Raptors, we've really never seen that translate to rebounding and rim protection numbers. It seems like he doesn't really have the instincts on when to jump, and he's a little lackadaisical on defense, which I think Joe's always going to choose the guy that is out there hustling and bumping into guys over the guy who should have the theoretical tools to get the job done. And one thing you can say for Luka Garza is he's always moving, he's always hustling, he's always running into guys. It's not usually effective, but he does provide some boost on the offensive end, even if he's not giving us what we need. I think in an ideal rotation, he would be a third or fourth big, kind of how we used Enes Kanter in past years, where he can come in for a 2-minute stretch and just have an incredible offensive rating because he can stretch the floor, because he can run a screen pick and roll almost as well as anybody we have in the last few years. And that was really his role with Minnesota and with Detroit before that, was he was always like a net rating darling, where he would come into games for very limited minutes, set a few screens, hit a few threes, have great touch around the basket to be able to put some second chance points in, and then get subbed out of the game. And the question was always, why do they keep subbing him out of the game on these such short time periods? And I think we're discovering now that what it is when you leave him in there for more than 5 minutes, the other team's going to pick up on that and just get every offensive rebound and put him in pick and roll. And he can't hold up under that scrutiny.
Yeah, and I think it is notable. He did have 3 blocks today, but he had 0 rebounds in 13 minutes. And I think when we're talking, we've talked about Joe Mazzulla's kind of mindset for this season is I just want 5 guys out there who can rebound. Um, yeah, I was surprised. We've had a fair amount of small ball minutes with Minot at the 5 pretty frequently, but yeah, I mean, Luka Garza only had 13 minutes tonight. Chris Boucher had 0. Xavier Tillman had 0. So I guess
Xavier Tillman was out.
yes. So I guess I was surprised with just the 2 bigs available, or at least with Chris Boucher seemingly not on his way to earning any minutes right now. That we spent so much time playing small ball, and Garza's minutes when he was on the floor, he was unable to corral any rebounds and help us in that respect. Keita had 8 tonight. I thought this was a good game from Neemias Keita. His shot wasn't falling, but I think it was in that first or second quarter, he was trying shots that he doesn't normally. And I did like that for him. They didn't go, and I'm pretty sure Scalabrine was like, Joe Mazzulla is going to yell at him
There
about
was the
taking
one
those shots.
fade away that was a little
Yeah,
questionable, but a lot of the little hook shots around the rim I didn't mind at all because I've seen him make those in other games.
yeah, and I want him building his kind of confidence offensively. I think one thing that did frustrate me watching this game about Keita is how often he was open on rolls and didn't get hit. I
He
counted
looked
at
like he was
least
getting
four.
frustrated by that too.
Yeah, there were at least 4 or 5 plays where he executed a screen perfectly and was rolling to the rim wide open, and just wasn't able to get the ball. I know that Jalen missed him once or twice. I believe Derek missed him once or twice. Pritchard might have, which is more surprising. If it was our other guys, I wouldn't be as caught off guard by that. But those are kind of our playmakers right now, and so the fact that they weren't able to get him the ball in those situations, and some of them, I saw Derek threw him a pass that was just a little bit off. He wasn't able to really corral it and get a good shot off before the defense collapsed. But I think that was encouraging that he was able to get open that frequently. And I think, again, that's something that they can look at film and go back and see that he's able to create that kind of space for open looks and easy looks. And that's something that hopefully he'll be able to get a more steady diet of moving forward.
Yeah, it's a much different job to be a pick and roll ball handler when your big is a dive in dunk big rather than a pick and pop big. And really, we haven't had one of those since Rob Williams was on the team.
Yeah.
I remember there was a week at the beginning of a season when Rob Williams was really breaking out, and it was Marcus Smart and Jason Tatum were the main guys I remember who kind of discovered if they just lob it up, he's going to catch it and finish it.
Yeah.
I don't know if Keita has that much pop to it, but I'm wondering if at some point it'll kind of click for some of the guys where, oh, if I just kind of toss it over, it's a bucket.
And I do think that is uh almost a false impression of like I don't think Keita at least right now has not shown that he's that guy. And that's when I saw Derek White throw a pass that was just off by a little bit, and I don't know if it's just I mean nobody really has like Rob Williams bounce like that that he did in those seasons. He was arguably the best lob threat in the league for a while. And I don't think Keita has necessarily that pop or that level of hands around the rim. So I do think it's not necessarily, he's not a guy that I think you can just throw it up and he'll make something work out of it. We've seen him he has to catch it and come down with it, and then he's kind of putting up a contested layup attempt. But I do think it's more about finding those opportunities where he is just keeping an eye out for those roles where he's just finding ways to get open. He's finding ways to beat his guy off the screen, and come off and head towards the basket kind of open. And it doesn't have to be a perfect lob attempt. We don't need him to dunk every one of those, but just getting the ball in his hands going downhill more, I think could be a potent weapon for him.
And we have so few weapons on this team that we kind of need to use everybody's skill. What did you make of this game for Hauser? He hasn't been shooting super well this season, and that continued tonight. He did seem fairly mistake-free from what I saw. He's not a terrible off-ball defender. He can stay in front of his man. He was hustling for rebounds, but when his shot's not there, I'm just not sure how we use him on the offensive end.
Yeah, I think that that's something I was paying attention to. And it's not that he was a ghost out there. I could tell that he was out there. And again, he put up 3 rebounds, he got 3 assists. So it's not like he was invisible without his scoring ability. The shot's not falling, and I don't expect that to remain the case. I think he will find his shooting stroke again. But I did notice in less than half the minutes, Hugo was able to out rebound him, and just be more active defensively. And it is at the end of the day just kind of a question of what are we looking for out there, and are we putting Sam out there expecting him to be a shooter? And if he's not, is he still of higher value to our offense and our defense than somebody like a Jordan Walsh or an Hugo Gonzales? I think he's a better basketball player right now than either of them are. But is he providing the same kind of defensive energy, forcing as many turnovers? I think that was one of the biggest turning points in this game. Is we had forced 14 turnovers through the first 3 quarters. We were building an offense off of creating fast break opportunities and forcing turnovers. And in that fourth quarter, we forced 1 turnover. I think that was that, and the fouls. I think not being able to create turnovers in the fourth quarter and create fast break opportunities and fouling as much as we did in that fourth quarter ultimately is what cost the Celtics the game. So when I look at what Sam Hauser was doing out there, again, he didn't make huge lapses defensively. I think he missed a few rotations off of shooters, but most everybody did during this game at some point. So it really is just kind of what else was he providing out there. And I think he played a solid game. But again, with his shot not falling, do I think ultimately just through intensity and getting second chance rebounds? And I thought Jordan Walsh did an excellent job, 6 rebounds tonight, just creating more opportunities in general, pushing the pace a little bit, and same with Ugo. And so I was just more excited about what I saw them doing with their minutes than what I saw Sam doing with his.
That's fair. I don't think you can find many guys in the league who provide more defensive energy than Hugo Gonzalez. And it's really a pick your poison, because with Hugo, you're going to get a ton of energy, a ton of deflections, a ton of just creating loose balls and opportunities for other guys. But you're also going to get a ton of mistakes. And Sam Hauser is fairly mistake free, but he's not going to drive the car. So if you have somebody else out there who is your gambler on defense, he's probably the better guy to put next to them. Well, Hugo
He is the gambler.
He's the gambler.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if you also feel this way, but we're a different team when Hugo, Jordan Walsh, and Josh Minot are on the floor. I noticed tonight that there were some minutes where all 3 of them were on the floor, and then a lot of minutes where none of them were on the floor. And I'm starting to have concerns about Joe's rotation, just because he seems to want to do an equal opportunity. You make a mistake, you get pulled. You play well, you stay in, for each individual guy. When in past years, we've used these first few weeks of the season to figure out who plays well with who. And I would love to see a rotation where we always have 1 or 2 of those 3 guys on the floor, just so somebody is giving hustle, somebody is diving for balls, somebody's trying to knock it loose, and there's three or four other guys on the court who are staying home on shooters. This game, I saw a lot of Hauser, Garza, Simons minutes, which, if I want shooting on the floor, I should have one or two of those guys out there. And if I want defense, I should have one or two of the defensive guys out there. But switching 3 for 3 just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that ultimately what is going to drive this team, and I don't know if this is just kind of our offensive strategy going into the season or us still kind of tinkering with it, but I do think uh, the kinds of lineups that have worked for us in the past few years of let's get as many shooters as we can on the floor at all times just isn't going to be as effective because the shooters we have aren't the caliber that they used to be. And I think that we're seeing in those minutes that we have those hustle guys, those energy guys out there, that they can be effective while creating kind of different types of offense. Frequently, that kind of push the pace, frenetic energy, creating turnovers, second chance. Again, Jordan Walsh got some offensive rebounds tonight that I thought were great. And so I think being more willing to mix in that type of offense as opposed to kind of a steady diet of we're going to try and get as many shooters out there and go to like a typical screen, drive, kick, shoot kind of offense that we just might not have the pieces for necessarily this year. And so moving them, rotating them in chunks, I don't think is going to be super helpful. I would also love for one of those three guys, the Ugo, the Minot, the Walsh to be on the floor at all times. And I think that's a testament, honestly, a huge testament. And you look at his minutes tonight, Jordan Walsh kind of came out of nowhere and has inserted himself as like, we want that guy to be getting minutes every game. And it seemed like he might have been like a fringe on the edge of that rotation of like, we didn't see any minutes from Shireman tonight. And Jordan Walsh, I think, just through energy and defense has kind of forced himself into that conversation of like, no, we want to see what this guy is capable of, especially because he's young. He's got tremendous like athletic and physical upside, and he just the way how hard he plays. And I think that's an interesting kind of comparison is like Shireman not getting minutes despite being more probably comfortable with the ball in his hands and as a shooter than Walsh. But Walsh just outplayed him for minutes, it seems like, at least in this game. And so that is a moment where it's like, okay, we're giving up some shooting, we're giving up a little bit of playmaking for someone who just is able to create opportunities for us on both ends. And so I'm curious to see moving forward how much that is a priority in terms of keeping those guys out there who create opportunities.
Yeah, after last night's game in the post-game interview, Jordan Walsh was saying that he's looking at every opportunity as I make an impact here or I'm moving out of the league. Because this is the last year of his deal. And with the amount of playing time he's gotten, it's not guaranteed that for a second round pick, he's going to get picked up by another team if he walks this offseason. So you can really see he's playing like
For
this
his
is his
NBA
chance
life.
to stay in the league. Yeah. And that amount of energy is just dwarfing some guys who are probably more skilled in a lot of ways. But he is making a much larger impact. Outside of the rotations, how do you think Joe Mazzulla is doing this season? If you had to give Joe Mazzulla a grade, what would it be?
Um, I'm wondering how much internally I'm grading him on a curve based on understanding that he has a shadow of the roster that he did
Yeah.
last year and throughout his NBA coaching career. It's just a different caliber of player that he's working with and a different type of system that he has to build in order to accommodate that. Um, I would say probably about a C. Um, yeah, I think there are moments where I want to grade him higher. There are moments where I want to grade him lower, but I think probably about a C. And I think that is, at the end of the day, just due to Again, the types of actions that we're running, the types of plays that we're calling or not calling, being primarily the issue for that. The rotations kind of are what they are, and it's early enough in the season that I'm willing to believe he's still tinkering and giving him the freedom to kind of figure out what works and believing that those will kind of sort themselves out and show themselves as players kind of break out of slumps or show what they're capable of. But I think it is I was optimistic today. I saw a lot more off ball actions. I saw some double off ball screens simultaneously on both sides of the wings to get shooters open. And I think those are the kinds of things I'm looking for. I We're 30 minutes into recording and we haven't talked about Jaylen Brown yet, which I think is a testament to how much is going on with this team. But I do think it's one of those things where I almost feel like the credit for some of the good things the Celtics are doing shouldn't don't even belong to Joe Mazzulla. Of like, I love what Pritchard and Jaylen have been doing. Pritchard going into this game, I believe, had the best field goal percentage in the NBA on drives at 76%. So Pritchard finding his way into inside the arc, where we know he can be a 3-point sniper. He hasn't shown it necessarily this year, but finding his way inside the arc and creating opportunities to score at an incredibly efficient rate. And I really think we should start looking and considering Jaylen Brown might be. I mean, you have SGA obviously still in the league, but obviously coming off of the season he just had, but Jaylen Brown might be the best mid-range player in the league right now.
Yeah.
His efficiency and his ability to create those shots for himself is out of control. And so when I think of how well Joe Mazzulla is doing this year, I think part of it is kind of figuring out the rotations, and that I expect to come a little bit with time. But I love the players. It seems like kind of taking it into their hands a little bit and being like, no, we're going to mix up our offense. We're going to have some short mid range shots from Pritchard. We're going to have Jaylen Brown creating some mid range turnaround shots for himself. And then the rest of the time, we're going to figure out some screen actions and how to. And again, I hope that we see some film study and go back and be like, all right, Neemias Queta was open 6 times during this game, rolling to the rim. Let's pick up on that and let's incorporate more of that into our offense.
Yeah, I really want to look at what Joe's doing based off process more than results, because with this roster and with what's happening this year, the goal shouldn't be necessarily to win the most games we possibly can. It should be how to teach these guys to play the right way. And I do really respect the amount of buy-in he seems to have with Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, even Neemias Queta and Josh Minot. If you look at him in the huddles, every time Neemias or Minot comes off the floor, he's just like screaming in their face,
Yeah.
telling them everything they've done wrong. And you can really see that um, kind of foiled in when Anthony Simons comes off the floor. He doesn't say much to Anthony Simons. I think because I don't think he thinks Anthony Simons is going to be here next year. And he really wants to ingrain habits in the guys he sees as his long-term projects. This week on Derek White's podcast, he was talking about training camp and how Joe Mazzulla has started blasting war noises during practices, where
Yeah.
he'll just blast like machine gun fire and explosions at guys. And I don't think listening to machine gun fire while you dribble actually makes you better at dribbling, if I'm being honest.
But the
But
science hasn't borne that out one way or
the
another yet. Yet.
science is scared to study it, is what I'm saying. No. But I do think it's a team building experience in a way, where there's an in group and there's an out group. And it's almost like Joe Mazzulla is building a cult of his players, is how he coaches, where if you're willing to accept that we're the team that listens to war noises while we do dribbling drills, then you're bought in. And he's trying to get you to buy in. My worry is what happens when somebody doesn't buy in. Anthony Simons is used to a very different practice experience than getting screamed at and listening to war noises. What happened? And if Anthony Simons isn't bought in and he moves on at the trade deadline or after that, it's not a huge deal. But what happens when we give up real assets to bring in a guy and a veteran who's made all-star teams and has a max contract and looks at Joe like, I don't know if I want to deal with this guy.
Um, I
So
think
I
that's
think I'm giving
that's
him a B plus for this season, but I'm saying it's incomplete.
yeah, and I think that's fair. I think also I'm very willing to admit like my grade is absolutely up for sale in the sense of if I see especially improvement in the guys and seeing them get more minutes of like if Keita is really impressing me this season. I think you texted me before the season saying I think you're going to be really surprised by him, and absolutely so far I have been. So seeing his continued development, seeing him become more well integrated. I mean, second net rating in the NBA going into this game, like that's nothing to sneeze at, and he has shown just improvement in general, like with the rebounding, with kind of positioning, with screening, and just creating opportunities for other guys. I think seeing Minot get slotted into the starting lineup and fixed there as quickly as he did, seeing that making that decision over Sam Hauser, who has been here and had kind of proven himself, I thought was a big move and something that's paid off really well. And I think we've discovered something of a hidden gem with Josh Minot. So I'm perfectly willing to as the season goes on, I think that grade hopefully gets significantly higher for me. Again, I just am looking more at play style right now, in terms of accommodating and kind of fitting into the system guys who aren't of the kind of talent caliber that Joe might be used to. But I think as to your question, I don't anticipate that happening for the simple reason that our core guys are already bought in. So let's say we bring in ex all-star, like hope, a center or whatever, whoever we bring in, who comes in and isn't used to the kind of culture and the energy that Joe is bringing. I think it's going to be difficult for that player to look at it and be like, I don't want any part of this, when they're also surrounded by, whenever they get here, like hopefully a healthy Jason Tatum who's fully bought into this, yeah. A healthy and blossoming Jaylen Brown who's fully bought into this, like Peyton Pritchard, who just won Sixth Man of the Year and earned himself a starting spot and it is kind of at this point a great point guard in the NBA because he bought into this, and Derek White, who is one of the best defensive point guards in the league, and a clutch offensive player as well. Like he's bought into this, and I think it's going to be difficult, especially if those young guys, those fringe guys, the Keitas, the Ugos, the Minots, the Jordan Walshes, if they are also buying into this and showing progress and exponential growth from that, I think it's going to be difficult for anyone to walk in and kind of have an attitude about it. And at that point, I think it would be more on that player than anything that I would fault Joe Mazzulla for.
Yeah, I think having the top guys bought in to this style of coaching, because if he can yell at Jaylen Brown, he should be able to yell at anybody. And I would much rather have Joe Mazzulla as our coach and just chaotic psycho energy all the time than have one of these journeyman coaches that a lot of other NBA teams have, who come in and they're really like the second or third loudest voice in the locker room. And then when they do challenge somebody, like you're seeing in Memphis, where, you say something to John Morant and then
he's
all
going
of a
to
sudden
burn the team down.
Yeah, he's burning the team down. We're not going to have that problem if the culture is built from within. And I think that's one of the reasons Joe Mazzulla is the coach of the Boston Celtics, is because he was an assistant and we didn't want to bring in one of those guys who wasn't going to be part of the culture, who didn't have the relationships already.
Yeah, and I think we've already seen, like in the past, like he's gotten buy-in. The guys like Jaylen Brown has been referring to like, our philosophy is we're going to war. Like they've been saying that in the playoffs for years, and that's the mindset that they've adopted, and they seem pretty comfortable with it. And so I don't think again, training camp, adding machine gun and explosion noises during dribbling drills, I don't think is making a ton of difference to these guys who already kind of knew what to expect and knew what they were going into, and have already bought into that system and seen it produce results. I mean, we won a championship that way. Um, so yeah, I'm giving him a soft C just because I want to see less of an emphasis on just like screen, drive, kick, shoot actions. And again, I'm already Jaylen
Well,
Brown and Peyton Pritchard have been going to the paint more and getting into that mid range area and creating a lot of offense that way. And also guys like Minot, Walsh, Ugo have been getting more minutes and creating more chaos on the defensive end and creating opportunities for fast breaks. And like all of that is perfect. I love that. Let's keep that going.
so the screen roll kick offense, Joe Mazzulla refers to as the killer whale offense. Because remember, last season they didn't
Yeah.
watch tape on other teams; they just watched tape of killer whales hunting
Hunting seals.
to
Yeah,
determine
for
that
sure.
offense. What predatory animal do you want them to watch this year to come up with a new offense?
That's an excellent question.
Just like a grizzly bear, like just a hard bodied post up, get into the paint, tear stuff up.
No, I think I'm trying to decide between. My mind drifted to hyena, but they're more like they scavenge other kills just as frequently as they make their own. I do think it's going to be lioness,
Okay.
a lioness offense where like they're going after occasionally giraffes or Cape buffalo, things that are significantly bigger than them, like pose a real threat to them, and it is just really coordinated teamwork and wearing down. Um, it is like we're going to bite at your legs and just grind it out, and we're going to take turns. Or wolves would be another one, where it's just kind of the entire pack is chasing the prey, and it's going to be, all right, I'm getting tired or I've taken a bite. You go in now, and you go in now, and it's just rotating opportunity. Um, and I think that there's also a flexibility in that of, all right, well, you're going to go bite the back leg and try and trip this up. I'm going to go for the neck and try and get a kill bite in. And so I think that's kind of when I think of variability of offense. That's going to be like kind of my key, what I'm watching for in the season, because it is something that I think Jason Tatum comes back healthy and whatever the team looks like next year, it's going to be important in those fourth quarters where everybody knows the Celtics are just going to shoot a ton of threes. No matter what the rest of our offense looks like, okay, what else do we have in our bag? And I want us to have the deepest bag possible. And so being able to, again, Kada rolling to the rim, finding open looks there. And I thought, again, Pritchard and Jaylen with the mid range, I love. I was excited to see Ugo looked confident with the ball in his hands today, which is huge for a 19-year-old against a physical, big NBA defense in Orlando. I was very, very excited to see how comfortable he looked. And, he didn't always make perfect decisions with the ball in his hands, but I thought overall that's a really optimistic sign if he's already starting to feel like, okay, I'm not fighting for my life for every single minute on the floor. Again, he only had 9 minutes. He got 4 rebounds. He didn't score. But just him being a part of the offense and feeling comfortable moving within the flow of it with the ball in his hands, I think will be big going forward.
No, I think Hugo's gonna be big going forward. And I have a rapid fire game for you. Because
Okay, hit me.
we do not have a good enough nickname for Hugo Gonzales yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I've come up with a list of possible Hugo Gonzales nicknames that I'd like to run by you.
I'm
Um,
excited. All right.
So one that I didn't come up with, but I have heard, is the White Claw.
Yeah. Okay. Am I
It's based on,
grading these?
it's based on the big hands because Kawhi's the Claw.
The
So
claw. Yeah, the white claw. It
I don't know if you
does.
needed that explained, but
No, and again, like I don't know necessarily if this is a New England thing, but I have grown up. I went to a private college. I've been surrounded by many, many kind of upper middle class white girls drinking White Claws at parties, and I just kind of want more for Ugo, if that makes
yeah.
sense. I don't think it's a bad nickname, but I think we're capable of better.
Okay, so here's a few I came up with. The Hugador.
The Hugador I like a lot
But-
more.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but Hugo Chavez went
Mm-hmm.
by Hugo Boss as his nickname. So I was thinking, um, our Hugo could be uh, Hugo Bossa Nova.
Okay, Hugo Bossa Nova. I was gonna say, is this you went to Hugo Chavez? I thought of Hugo Boss, the fashion designer.
Oh, that too.
I think I still do prefer. See, here's the thing: is now I'm thinking about it. Hugador is very good. It does conjure the image of a matador moving out of the way,
Yeah,
which,
that's
given
really
kind
just a
of,
Spaniard thing.
yeah, I don't want that image coming to mind when I think of him on defense. You know.
Okay, so he comes in, he provides a lot of energy. We call
Mm-hmm.
him the Huga Cane.
Oh, that one's
Huh?
a flat no for me.
That's a
I,
flat no,
I
really.
think that one I gotta back off of.
Um, Hugadorus Rex.
um, yeah, I think he's gotta show some more before he can kind of earn the king of the dinosaurs kind of title. Also, I think the little arms with
Oops.
his wingspan doesn't quite work, but I can see some stuff happening there.
Okay. I have just a list of some that are based on the nickname Gonzo for Gonzalez. So there's
Mm-hmm.
Gonzo, Gonzo Grip, and Gonzo the Gambler.
Gonzo the Gambler, I don't
Yeah,
hate.
that's a
Yeah,
fun one, right?
yeah. Yeah, I think there's some potential there. I think I wanna try and I'll spend some time thinking about this over the next few days because I think that we do need a better nickname for him. I think he will be like a feature of this rotation moving forward, even in limited minutes. We're just gonna
He's
keep being
begging
excited
for a
about him.
nickname.
He
Yeah,
really is, yeah. I wanted to ask you a question, kind of
yeah.
as we're moving forward here. Josh Minot, what is your kind of take on his future with the Boston Celtics organization? Because I think at this point we're again 8 games into the season, 8 or 9 games. Uh, he's showing so much, and it doesn't seem like there's any kind of sign of him letting up. Again, 8 rebounds tonight, 12 points. He showed some comfort shooting the three ball. Was able to drive and have a nice little like finger roll layup at some point. Um, just how quickly he's worked himself not only into this rotation but into this offense and what he provides on the defensive end with his rebounding and again just kind of being everywhere. What do you think is kind of what's it looking like for Mr. Minot?
I think him and Kada, they're both locked up through the end of next year.
Yep.
This is Brad Stevens' signature as a GM has been the early extensions, where he
Yes.
gets these guys on minimum contracts, locked up for a few years. It's what he did with Hauser, it's what he did with Pritchard. And when you offer a year early, you have a lot more negotiating power from the team side. So that's why we have Peyton Pritchard on a $7 million a year deal. That's why we
Yeah.
have Hauser on
Hauser
a
for like
10
10
million.
or 11. Yeah.
10, yeah. So I think, if we go to Hugo and Kada this year and say, hey,
You mean Minot?
oh yeah, Minot and Kada is what I
Yeah.
meant. And say, hey, 4 for 45, or 3 for 36, like just to get them on a big money long term deal, but that also is team friendly once we get there. Because I think if we let these guys get to unrestricted free agency, if they keep leveling up over the next year, which they're still young, Hugo's 20, not Hugo, Minot's 22.
Kata's 26. Yeah.
Yeah, so they both have improvements to make over the next year. So really, the end of this season, I think Kate is already extension eligible, and Minot will be towards the end of this year. The second they are, I would be calling their agents, figuring out what their signing decision is, because neither of them have made high end NBA money yet. They've both been on minimum second round rookie contract deals. If we offer them something in the tens of millions, I think there's a good chance we could lock them up long term. And that's one of the reasons I've accepted that we're just getting rid of Simons at the end of the season, is because with the second Abram, we really need that cap money to extend these guys, if we're not going to gut other parts of the roster.
Yeah, so kind of following up on that, I think Minot, it seems like, is almost more likely to accept something like that based on how limited his role has been in the past, not getting that much playing time in Minnesota. It seemed like, again, joining the team this year, it was kind of he's playing for a little bit, he's playing for his NBA life. Like he might get picked up somewhere, but there's no guaranteed minutes for him out there necessarily. Um, Keita, I think, is a little bit more of an interesting case just in the sense that I feel like he should know how important he is to this Celtics team right now, and kind of has a little bit more leverage in that sense. But yeah, I would love to get them. I think also how much I'm curious to see how much players are aware of this now at this point, and seeing guys like Pritchard, who now is, I mean, I guess it's fair to say, like, underpaid for his value. Is worth a lot more, could get more on the open market right now than his current contract reflects. And so seeing guys and being like, ooh, I might not want to make that mistake necessarily. And again, not knowing if it's guaranteed that you're going to make that same progression that Pritchard has shown, and Sam Hauser becoming one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. But also kind of following up on that, when Jason Tatum comes back, either at the end of this year or next season, whatever it happens to be, kind of looking at our wing rotation, knowing we have Pritchard locked up, knowing we have Derek White locked up, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, uh, then having Sam Hauser, having Josh Minott, having Jordan Walsh, having Hugo Gonzales. It's a pretty deep wing rotation, which I think is never a bad thing in the NBA. But just trying to figure out what rotations could look like, what minutes could look like for some of these guys is are we going to end up taking a step back in terms of developing someone like Ugo, or more likely kind of Jordan Walsh, as Tatum gets back, and if Minot gets extended, and knowing that we have Sam Hauser locked up for a couple of years.
Yeah, one, I don't think it's a necessarily a mistake for these guys, because waiting till free agency, you're also risking injury, and you're risking a decline in minutes. Where if
Yeah.
Jason Tatum comes back and you're suddenly the odd man out, then you're, going to another team for the minimum when you could have, locked up $50 million in the bank. And there's a big difference between coming out of the NBA having earned, $4 or $5 million and earning 60 or $70 million. So I don't know if I would call it a mistake for them to choose financial security. I mean, I wouldn't criticize them for going for the big money either. Definitely worth offering. In terms of the minutes, what really excites me about this core is that the last few years, all of our best net rating lineups have had Jaylen Brown at the two. So I think I really like the look of lineups that have Jaylen Brown at the two, where he's going to have a guard on him and can really exploit those size mismatches, get into the paint like we've seen him doing this year, and make some stuff happen. And then Jason Tatum's always better when he's covered by bigs, because if you have to put a slower defender on him, then he can really use his speed and step back jump shots to score over guys. So I think having a rotation of guys we can slot into that three spot between them, who don't need the ball in their hand and can either space the floor or just make opportunistic plays between those two guys. Like if you have a lineup where it's Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Josh Minott, Jason Tatum, and a big, especially a big who can space, Josh Minott's going to find so many opportunities to get out in transition, to get loose balls, to just make things happen without needing high usage. So having a couple extra wings that we can rotate between those two guys and give those guys time to sit in the regular season. Because last year, it just seemed by the end of the year, I mean, Jason Tatum had the Achilles, which is usually a sign that you've had some calf strains before that, which is an exertion injury. And Jaylen Brown had an injured hamstring, which is also associated as an overuse injury. So just having guys who can give them rest, but also play with them is exactly the kind of guys I want on this roster next year.
Yeah, I think. Speaking of which, Jaylen Brown first dunk of the season today.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you a little bit? And I think when it happened on the broadcast, they mentioned like Jaylen Brown under Brad Stevens was known as like a slasher who could make some thunderous dunks at the rim, and seeing that that's not necessarily not not a part of his game. It's not something he doesn't have access to, but it's not something he's been using. And again, showing. I mean, I don't have a problem with it necessarily if he's being this efficient from the mid range, but were you surprised that it's been this far into the season before he got one?
I mean, maybe a little surprised. I have noticed Jaylen Brown still looks as athletic, but I think he's learned to use his athleticism in much smarter ways. Where when he's going to the rim and goes up to jump, he's getting the same amount of height and air time that he used to for dunking, but he's using it to get through the defender rather than slam the ball down. And you see that with a lot of guys as they go through their career. I mean, the example that jumps to mind is LeBron, where you saw him in that first Cleveland era, and he was using all his power to just slam the ball down into the hoop. And he still does that on some fast breaks. But even when he went to Miami in the second Cleveland run, he was jumping a lot sooner and then using that air time to either maneuver around defenders or just get to the rim faster without a defender cutting him off. Because the second you jump, if anyone touches you, it's a foul. So if you can jump from the free throw line and then finish, there's so much more room for error where your defender can't catch up to you and stop your forward progress.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think he has shown. I think it's been really, really good to see his maturity in how he's approaching the game this season and understanding his role on this team. I think in understanding how aggressive he has to be, how he has to use his energy when he's on the court. I think being able to pick up, oh, I can switch onto a smaller defender and get this mid-range jumper pretty much every time, and it's going to take me less energy than forcing my way to the rim. I think we saw in the Wizards game, I want to say, maybe the Utah game, the ability to get to the free throw line when he needs to. Um,
His handle as a pick and roll ball handler looks night and day better this season. And I just really hope that continues when Jason Tatum comes back. Because the dream of those two to me has always been that if you have Jaylen Brown with a guard on him, Jason Tatum with a big on him, Jason Tatum sets the pick. That way they can't just switch it every time. And if Brown can handle this well, and Jason Tatum can still has the size and athleticism to roll to the rim and is going to be the best pick and pop option maybe in the league, that's going to be an unstoppable tandem. Where in past years they haven't really been able to run a two-man action together, and that's kind of been their weakness, where at the end of games Jaylen Brown's a little bit wasted as just a weak side shooter,
yeah,
when Jason Tatum's the closer, and then they have to play, the your turn, my turn at ends of games.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot even early in this season that we can look forward to. Again, we've been seeing a lot of especially even in the fourth quarter today, seeing some Minot at the 5 minutes and just kind of mentally picturing what does that look like when instead of Minot at the 5, it's Jason Tatum at the 5. And just kind of the different rotations that we've been discovering that just slot Jason Tatum in there and see kind of how much more flexibility we have, how much more offensive firepower we can find in those possessions. It does seem like there's a lot to be excited about. One thing I wanted to bring up at halftime, the only guys with a positive plus minus were the hustle guys, were
Yeah.
Keita, Ugo, Jordan Walsh, and Josh Minot. And kind of what you think that means. I mean, again, it's plus minus in a half against Orlando early in the season, but just how effective those guys have been able to be, even in limited minutes. Like Ugo in 9 minutes was more effective than, you know, a lot of guys who had a lot more time, who are more proven guys than, you know, the Sam Hauser, the Anthony Simons. But, and again, the counting stats aren't as impressive as eye popping, but just being able to make an impact on the game and what you think that means for their minutes going forward.
I think what it means in this game is that they all played together. And that was part of my big frustration with the rotation is in that first half we had some really great play when those three guys were sharing the court and we went on a big run. And then we subbed the three of them out for Simons, Garza, and Hauser, and we were really reliant on Jaylen Brown to just do everything on defense. And it's why Jaylen Brown had a terrific game and looked unstoppable at moments and played really good defense on Paolo Banchero, who's a much larger player than him. And his ability to guard up um, and shut a guy down was awesome. I haven't looked at how he shot, but it didn't seem like he was getting any easy shots over Jaylen Brown. Was awesome, but he ended up a minus 24 for the game. And that's because when you put him out there as the only defensive player, it's not going to wind up good because he just has so much to carry on offense. He can, be a lockdown one-on-one player, but he's not going to be your rim protector, your help defender, just all in one guy. I do want to see way more minutes for, I believe Minot got a lot of minutes in this game, but I would love to see a few more minutes go to Gonzalez and Jordan Walsh. But especially in lineups where they can, when you take Minot out of the game, you put Gonzalez or Walsh into the game. Going into this game, the second best two-man combination net rating wise in the league was Keita Minot.
Yeah.
And I mean, they seem to play great together. They have good rebounding chemistry where they kind of know who's going for it and who's boxing out. So totally play those guys together. But then when you bring Garza into the game, I think you need to have a Jordan Walsh or an energy guy of some sort come in with him, because if you bring him and Hauser in, theoretically it's a much better spacing lineup, but you're just not getting the same energy you would if you kind of mix and matched a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it'll help Keita on the rolls to have a Hauser at the 4 with him. It's part of the argument for having Hauser even start is that what Keita and Minot do is a little bit redundant. Of course, just the amount of good things Minot's doing, I still want him out there. But to get a little bit more Keita Hauser minutes, just so that when Keita rolls, there's not that help defender meeting him at the rim.
Yeah. And we've seen Keita have the ability to catch a quick pass on the roll and throw it out to an open shooter on the 3-point line. And so having Hauser, hopefully he's able to kind of rediscover his shooting stroke a little bit. But I think Keita is able to kind of find those guys as he's rolling. And that would be huge, just getting some more playmaking out of that painted area from Keita. Yeah, I was excited. 19 minutes for Jordan Walsh tonight. Only 9 for Gonzalez. I'd like to see, and again, Minot and Keita both 8 rebounds tonight, and so it's those two are a potent combination. Whether one of them's on the floor or both of them's on the floor, I think they are providing a lot. I mean, we matched up with a much bigger team physically tonight, and I believe, matched them in rebounds, and even got one more offensive rebound than them. So excited to see that kind of progress and see. Again, I think a big part of it that you pointed out is they know who's boxing out when those two are together.
Yeah.
I think team rebounding is something that, like, is an area that we've been suffering from a little bit. Um, just not quite being able to get on the same page with boxing out, just collecting those rebounds. I noticed in the first quarter, Keita had that one little play of volleyball rebounding to
That
himself where
was
he,
awesome.
yeah, I do want to see a little bit more fundamental, like can we get two hands on the ball with our rebounds? But again, just I think having guys who are on the same page and preventing, three guys from the other team crashing and grabbing a board out from under Keita is as much as we can have of that. And that's where guys like Jordan Walsh and Gonzalez, like they're gonna be fighting for every ball. And so it's good to see them getting more minutes. And overall, again, I think there were a lot of positives. We didn't even mention. I think Peyton Pritchard's best game of the season.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. I feel like Peyton Pritchard's back at this point, where going into the Jazz game, he was shooting 18% from three.
yeah,
Um, and going forward, I have no concerns about Pritchard's three ball.
yeah. And again, his percentage inside the 3-point line has been so phenomenal, and I think really found his confidence. Was able to again manipulate screens to get into kind of a preferred area. I thought his game inside of 10 feet, like the little floaters, the little turnarounds, are just really working for him right now. And seeing him be able to utilize that is just really good to see. I think he got into, let's see. Yeah, I mean, three fouls, three turnovers. You don't love to see that, but I thought it was overall an amazing game for him. Good to see him kind of get his confidence back, and I'm excited to see what we come up with for the rematch against Orlando on Sunday. I think that we learned some lessons from this game, and again, I think Banchero didn't look like himself, but I think that part of that was Jaylen Brown playing excellent defense. I think Orlando had some probably unsustainable 3-point shooting tonight, and I think we just had a disaster of a fourth quarter in terms of the fouls and not being able to force turnovers on defense. So I'm pretty optimistic going back into the rematch.
Yeah, I'm gonna call Peyton Pritchard's dribble into the paint the Honey Badger offense. Uh,
That's the
my
best
name for
nickname
it.
we've had so far.
Even better than the Hugador. I don't know about that.
I
I
think
did
the
want
Honey
to ask
Badger
you
offense is great. Yeah.
one last question because you and I do tend to be extremely positive about this Celtics team. Um, who are you most disappointed by this year? Who has failed you on a personal level?
On a personal level, who has failed me from this Celtics team?
Yes, who has failed us from the Celtics team?
Um,
Who are you just like, come on, man?
I think if I'm being honest, like I want to say Sam Hauser,
Okay.
just because I thought last year he had really solidified himself as like a really just like extremely solid. You always know what you're getting game to game. Um, and I think part of that might just kind of be a recency bias of like without his shot, I don't really know what he is, but like he's still getting some rebounds, he's still passing the ball a little bit. I want him to have when his shot isn't falling, I'm looking for more of what Jordan Walsh is doing, what Ugo is doing, what Josh Minot is doing. I want to see him impacting the game more with energy and effort, rather than it feels like even though his shot isn't falling, it felt like I spent a lot of time watching him in this game just kind of floating, looking for the next 3-point shot that he could get off. And wanting to see a little bit less of that and a little bit more of, okay, well, how can I help in other ways? But realistically, the answer is Xavier Tillman, just because I was higher on him than I think I should have been going into the season. I thought that he could be kind of a more capable kind of bench big than he has been so far this year. And again, we've talked about the swelling in his knee and kind of he's just a question mark this year, but I had higher expectations and higher hopes than what I've seen from his time on the floor. And that's my real kind of just straight up disappointed.
Xavier Tillman. Wow, he has been catching a lot of strays on this podcast.
It's not even
If
it's only because of how much I believed in him that I'm saying that he's been the biggest disappointment to me. It's because I had such high expectations that he just hasn't lived up to them. It could change. he could like come back and learn how to like move his feet quicker again and start hitting threes and like not looking lost on possessions. And I think, you know, I've seen crazy things happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, with him, I've said this before, but I think a lot of it's a health issue where Xavier Tillman a few years ago for the Grizzlies was just a different player in how he moved. And if he can get back to that, that'd be awesome.
That's what I'm
Uh,
saying. Yeah.
my player, and it pains me to say this, but it's Derek White. And
Oh
oh,
no. Okay.
and
16 and 10 today, by the way.
16 and 10. Listen, Derek White, he makes the right plays. But lately, the right play has been him kind of being passive. He doesn't really have his shot going. He hasn't been able to create a lot off pick and rolls. And the reason it's disappointing to me is because if this team decides to tank out this year, I think Derek White's the one that's getting traded. This week, Bill Simmons has already started campaigning for a Derek White to Houston trade. I know there was a lot of calls made this offseason about Derek White's availability, where the rumor was multiple first-round picks were on the table. Derek White's 32. He's going to be 33 next year. By the time, Jason Tatum said a full season under him, he's going to be a 34-year-old combo guard. So yeah, I'm worried that if Derek White continues this level of play, he still has a great reputation around the league. I think teams like Houston would see him as a finishing piece to a title team this year, so they'd be willing to give up a lot for him. And he would make us just bad enough that our pick would be good to theoretically have a bounce back year next year. But I've come so attached to having Derek White on this team that I wouldn't want him to go. So I want him to turn it around, be a little bit more aggressive in pick and roll. I think he sets a bar for himself where he wants to hit a certain level of efficiency. But with the talent around him this year, I would like him to run, 5 more pick and rolls a game, even if it means he's a little less efficient. I want him to, start being a little bit more aggressive off the dribble with his three.
Yeah, I think I'm having an emotional reaction to you saying
Yeah.
this.
I'm
I
not
do think, I mean, again,
advocating for a Derek White trade at all. I'm just scared of what's going to happen because I see pieces falling together.
yeah, I mean, I don't. I think part of it, his shot hasn't been falling, and I can see how that's impacted his play and kind of his level of aggression. Um, Again, I think he didn't look particularly aggressive tonight. He got 16, 10 assists, leading the team in playmaking, a block and 3 steals, and that's kind of the thing is with this team,
So good on defense.
so good on defense,
That
and that's kind of if we're talking about building a culture going into next season, I think he's just one of those guys that I think again with a healthy Jason Tatum coming back, I'm just not interested really in a bunch of first round picks to kind of like figure out how to add pieces around him, especially with kind of where we've been at with the salary cap and like, okay, well, what are we doing with those picks? I don't think it makes sense to kind of sit on them and wait to draft guys. I think we would need to flip them into someone that can help Jason Tatum win. And at the end of the day, I don't know who is better culturally in creating a defensive identity, in being that efficient kind of playmaker, that clutch offensive guy, even if he's not being kind of the offensive leader this season. I think he's just a tone setter and something that is really important. And I don't know that we can flip him for something that will be more helpful when Jason Tatum comes back. I think that he's shown chemistry with Jalen and with Jason. And just feels like that combo role slot is really important. I think you mentioned earlier, and I think it's fair, Jaylen Brown does very well at the 2.
Yeah.
I will always prefer a Derek White Jaylen Brown combo in the backcourt than just Pritchard and Brown, just because of all the other dimensions that Derek White brings defensively, and in terms of as a playmaker as well. But yeah, that one hurt. I do understand the
This
idea of being disappointed in his performance, in hoping that he turns things around a little bit, but the
if
trade talk
he
was
did
a
this the
bridge too
start of
far for me.
last if he did this the start of last year, I don't think I would feel the same way, because I would say he's coming back. There's no way we're going to trade him because we're going for a title this year, and nobody helps you win a title more than Derek White. But since our window's changed and Derek White's the oldest of this, who I'd consider core guys, and we're under new ownership, and I think because of the second apron and the number of years we've been above the salary cap, there's going to be some pressure to do a trade at the deadline. And not a lot of teams are going to want Simons unless there's, a pick or we're taking back long-term money. Hauser, we could probably send to a team, but I don't think we're going to get a lot back for Hauser's contract. It would just kind of be a dump, which, giving away a valuable contract just to get under the salary cap doesn't make a lot of sense, though it's a
I would
possibility.
argue it makes more sense than giving away a valuable player.
If he's valuable to us, and if he keeps
I think
playing
we
this way, he
also,
could convince somebody he's not. Not that I'm, again, not advocating to trade Derek White. I would never do that.
yeah, but again, I think he's underperforming for what we know that he's capable of right now. I don't think by any means that he's showing that he can't be. Especially, I think we're seeing the league is just like the way that medicine and science is going right now. I just think guys are playing longer than they used to, and being productive longer than they used to. Um,
I don't know. I just imagined like a bionic Derek White for a second there.
I think we
And that
could
did
see
make me
that.
happy.
Yeah, I can kind of like Derek White does have a little bit of Terminator energy of like you just put him out on the court and he's gonna do stuff to help us win basketball games, and like that's all I really need. I think. Yeah, I don't know when. I mean, I do. It was that game against Miami that he pushed it to a game seven, but like he has become a little bit of a cult hero in Boston, and I always wince at the idea of trading those kinds of guys. Like I cried fully manly
Yeah.
tears when Isaiah Thomas got traded, like when Marcus Smart got traded. I think those kind of culture guys, those dudes, I think are just they bring something really valuable to a team. I do understand that we want him to be better, but anybody who calls and wants to trade for him, I'm not doing it. I would say there's five guys in the league that I would trade Derek White for.
I completely agree. And I don't want to end this podcast on a sad note. So I'm going to give you the nicknames for the Nemise Keita fan club. And I want you to
Okay.
tell me your favorite. Okay?
Yep.
The Keita Committee.
Okay.
Nemi Hive.
I like Nemi Hive.
Keitaholics.
Cadeaholics. Cadeaholics is good. I think I'm still leaning Nemi Hive.
The Keitaverse Council.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I got.
I think it's got to be Nemi Hive out of those.
Okay. I felt like Nemi
Cataverse.
Hive was the most basic. Like, we've had a lot of hives in. Like, you can always just put a guy's name and then hive.
Yeah,
It
I
does have
do
a bit
like
of a ring to it.
I like Cadeaholics a lot, and then think about the connotations, and that makes me a little sad. And that's not the energy I want associated with
I think
Cada.
it makes sense because we are addicted to Nemise Keita minutes. When we don't have them, we're just panicking.
Yeah, I think there's work to be done here, and I think we can find something. I also don't hate Cadaverse Council.
Keitaverse Council was actually my favorite. But,
Yeah.
okay. You seem indecisive on both my nickname rankings. So next episode, I will ask you to come with your own.
Okay.
If you think you
This I
can
can
top
do.
them. Okay.
Yep.
That is all for this episode of Jays and Confused. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jay.